So some really good principles that we follow for soil health is to keep the soil covered with living plants as much as possible throughout the year, with a lot of root activity going on.
You also want to keep a live plant growing all year round, continually feeding those soil microbes, which is then going to lead to better soil aggregates and aggregate stability.
It changes the whole microbial community below the soil, something we call the soil food web, and it changes the structure of the soil. The water infiltrates and gets stored and slowly released to plants over a period of time.
If we want food, we have to make sure we're tending and taking care of the soil. Cover crop is super, super important. It is a time for rest for the soil, a time for critters to come back, a time for rooting to take place, a time for nitrogen to be able to be collected from the atmosphere and collected down into the soil.
So, Servando, what I'm liking about this pasture is that when we dig up from underneath the canopy of the plants, we're seeing some aggregate formation take place in the pasture and move the microbes down further in the soil profile. So I'm liking what I'm seeing here, because what that means is that there's a little bit of microbiology happening in the soil here, because we don't get these aggregates without microbiology in the soil. And those little aggregates are holding on to water on the inside of them, right? So when these aggregates are kind of pushed back together, little crevices happen in between those aggregates, and that's what holds water in the soil.
If we're talking about the macro scale ecosystem services of soil, I would say the water holding capacity is number one. Soil diversity of the microbiota is huge in promoting water holding capacity, sequestering carbon, and promoting nutrient density.
The way we traditionally farmed, the only way we could get the soil to take water was run a breaking plow or do something to break the soil up to where it would take the water. With the new way that we farm, it's taking water because we got a living root growing there nearly year round. We got earthworms tilling the soil for us. We get a rain now, instead of it running to the low places in the field, it just goes right into the soil.
We don't remove the plant from the soil. Once a crop is at the end of its life, we go in with a flail mower, maybe 1 or 2 inches above the soil, and it just mows, chops up all of that organic matter into tiny little pieces that are easily degraded over time. Especially with the humidity here, it happens within a matter of a couple of weeks. That is left on the soil, decomposes, and then we'll just go ahead and transplant directly in there. And so those roots that were there from the previous crop are still in the soil. They never were removed.
You know, the soil will do the work for us in some ways if we've created the conditions for it to really thrive. So we do pay a lot of attention to the water retention and water holding capacity of our soils and how what we do in the fields might affect that capacity.